Aloha everyone, I am Kumu Kawika Foster, and this is Ho'oponopono Deep Dive Series with a Twist, Part 2. We're talking about Pono, the essence of being in alignment and having all of the facets of our being where they rightfully belong. We're also exploring the power and the significance of our words and our ancestral understanding of the spoken language. And then we also impart the literal translation of the word Ho'oponopono. So thank you for being here, and let's get into the video. Okay everyone, so we are continuing our Ho'oponopono deep dive. And today we're talking about Pono and exploring the depths of Pono and its significance and importance in the traditional process of Ho'oponopono. And what I'd like to start off by sharing is the importance and the significance of our ancestors and their approach, their use of the spoken word. For our ancestors, words have deep, multi-layered levels of meaning, and our words have immense power. And so for this reason, they were very mindful and careful with the words that they spoke. There is an understanding in our ancestry, in our lineage, in the spoken word, and that is that our WAHA, our mouth, can cause life, and it can also cause death, depending on the words that flow out of it. Aloha, and speaking aloha, brings life. Love and speaking the words love brings life. Hate and speaking the word hate and all the power that our ancestors knew to reside behind the words that we speak brings death. And this is how direct and how simply they knew and understood the power of the spoken word. In essence, our ancestors were the masters of the language of silence. If they spoke, they spoke only what needed to be said. And they never spoke about what needed to be said directly. The language of our ancestors is metaphoric. It's symbolic. When our elders see a group of children walking home from school down a path, they don't look at the children walking down the path and say, hey, look at that group of children walking down the path. Instead, when our elders, our ancestors, when they are asked what they are looking upon, they'll say, I see flowers blowing in the wind. And the reason that they spoke in metaphor and symbology and their oral language was rooted and steeped in metaphor and symbology, once again, is because they knew and understood the power that our words have. So they never spoke about anything directly. With the humbleness and humility of not wanting to offend whatever it is that they were speaking about. So with this understanding of the importance and the significance of language, the spoken word, and the power that rests in our language, now we can begin to understand the importance and the significance of this one word, pono. Pono, translated today in English definitions and terms, is right or righteousness or balance. And in defining the word pono in this way, we must go back to understanding the significance of the spoken word. And more importantly, the way of thinking in which our oral language was born from in our ancestors. So, when we speak about this word pono in today's terms, we move our consciousness, our awareness back to the original understanding of the way of life and the way of thinking of our ancestors. And in that time, in that place of origin of our language, pono is in the essence of knowing exactly where everything and everyone belongs. And in doing so, rests exactly where it needs to be. And it has nothing to do with the modern English language definition or the Western way of thinking from which this language of English stems from. So when we talk about right or rights or righteousness, it has nothing to do with the Western understanding of right and wrong. Rights as in laws and what I'm due, or what I'm capable of doing, because rights are bestowed upon me from a government, a political, or a societal standpoint. Pono and the righteousness that we speak of has everything to do with everything in this universe and knowing where it rightfully belongs. Once again, to go back to the importance and the significance of our ancestors and the power of language. They've chosen to repeat themselves in one word. This word pono. If you take an opportunity, if you take the moment to look up at the top, right, of the title of this room, of this discussion, right, you will notice ho'oponopono. And now looking at the word and reading the word with the understanding of the power and the significance of language and the spoken word, now we can begin to explore and to understand where our ancestors were coming from in the essence of this word, pono. We must ask ourselves, what is their meaning? What is their purpose? What is their reasons? What is this foretelling to us? What is this sharing with us? That our ancestors are repeating themselves in one word. In the understanding of our language and the essence in its oral and its spoken form, it is in its very directness, in its simplicity, difficult to explain the essence and the meaning of this word pono, but indeed also difficult to explain the essence and the meaning and the understandings of the spirit of our ancestors, given the English language that I'm speaking in. When I speak of righteousness and right balance, when I share with all of you my relationship to the wind, and then begin to share with you the essence of that relationship and the righteousness of that relationship, in the language that I'm speaking of, in the language that I'm speaking in, to describe my relationship, I have to use words like me and the wind. To describe my relationship to the wind. So, just in the spoken word alone, in the English language that I'm speaking in right now, there are 4 layers of separation between me and the wind. Oh, and granted now, everyone, I'm not even bothering to address that wind by name. It's just the wind. In the Western language English language that I'm speaking in. So there's no level of intimacy. There's no level of closeness. There's no level of understand or beginnings to understand what that relationship with that wind is. In the mind, in the way of thinking. So pono. Pono is knowing what is. And pono is also knowing that there only is what there is. Pono is the difference between thinking and knowing. And in Ho'oponopono we come to know. And to round out the significance of this word Ho'oponopono for all of you. Ho'o is a causative. It translates into English to mean to do or to make. And pono, very simply, very directly, and in its most simplest terms, in its most literal terms, it's very right. So in its entirety, Ho'oponopono literally means to make very right again. Mahalo for allowing me to share. This is Pono. This is Pono in its essence.